it gets down to, it's just a matter of economics.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of the things that is, to me, attractive in leasing is that people could see the offset between fuel savings associated with electricity versus gasoline. And that offset against the...
We have a lot of evidence across many products, not only vehicles, but household appliances, that consumers discount the future savings in electric costs at a very high rate. You know, the studies that have been done suggest consumers use a rate of 20 or 30% to discount those savings. And so I think, you know, we've always had a disconnect between the purchase price and the usage cost, and where consumers way undervalue future usage costs. And that will be continue to be a problem in this situation as well.
Yeah, interesting world. It gets down to those messy old consumers again, but we can't live without them.
Yes.
We don't have much of a business. Dr. Wu, a large percentage of Chinese in large cities live in multifamily dwellings. What provisions are being made to provide plug-in infrastructure to these apartment dwellers?
It's both a disadvantage and advantage. In terms of segment targeting point of view, it's actually very concentrated. You just look in the top, China actually made a plan. They only allow electric vehicles. This is the beauty about China, in 13 cities, right? That's where the rebates is only target 13 cities. And you go to the 13 cities, the segment you're looking for is the building that has a basement parking garage. So all you need to wire up is the basement parking garage. That's why in the pilots of the 3 cities, that's the first thing they wire up. And an additional advantage of China is the bill payment. It's fundamentally different than the United States. Everyone is on a prepaid method. So my house is on a prepaid card. So make the collection very, very straightforward. Technically, it's very easy to do, to take my house card, you know, which has, you know, money deposited into it, go to the basement, go to a meter, you plug it in, and there you go. So it's actually a major advantage from one perspective. If you just think through, I'm not targeting 1 billion customer, I'm targeting in the top cities to the segment that potentially will afford this type of vehicle.
Interesting. I think that's one of the things that's often hard for us to appreciate, the combination of similarities and differences that exist around the world. And of course, we see this probably in no more significant way than the huge variation in fuel prices, where we have relatively inexpensive fuel, and in other places. What would be sort of the effective price per gallon of gasoline now in China?
It's European price.
It's European price.
Yeah.
So it's a high price.
It's very high price.
Yeah.
And so the saving side is actually more predominant, but it runs
we'll
into the
see
same
it
problem.
much more aggressively. Yeah, very interesting. There was another question here, just a quick comment, Dr. Wu. What about lithium? I mean, we see this huge expansion of batteries, and if others want to comment on it too, and you hear mixed views. Are we going to run out of lithium as we aggressively move into lithium batteries? And
I just read Toyota formed a joint venture in China with the Qinghai to go to the upstream lithium. So it's all over the Chinese Caijing, which is the equivalent of Fortune here, saying, oh, the war on upstream lithium is there. And there are multiple people approaching us and trying to say, do you want to own this lake? Do you want to own that lake on the mine yet? So my belief, again, you know, many people in this room are much better suited to answer the question than I do, is I'm sure people will find ways of getting lithium. At this point, ask me to own a lake just for, say, you know, down 10 years down, I might own an important mine. Certainly hasn't made our investment cut yet.
Okay. Well, one of the things I think we have to look at is historically what's happened with the lead acid batteries, where lead is almost totally recycled today, and old lithium batteries become a good mine of new lithium. We just have to have enough to fill the pipeline over time. Any other comments on?
No, the similar arguments were made when we brought out the nickel metal hydride packs as well.
Right.
You know, the world will stop spinning if we kept making hybrids. But you know, the world has continued to spin. Hybrids are still, you know, they're growing in market share every year, and we're recycling the battery packs, those nickel metal packs, almost fully. So.
Question here is, what about fuel cells? We've had lots of comments from companies. Toyota's working on fuel cells, GM, Ford, European companies, comments about 2015. The federal government here is kind of backed away from fuel cells. What about fuel cells, and how does that fit into the whole plug-in picture?
From Toyota's perspective, when we look at the future of transportation systems and we look at where do we go from today and what does the future hold for us, we really see there's multiple solutions. I think it's been mentioned a couple times. There's not one solution, and I think depending on which country you're in, which region you're in, which even city you're in, you're going to see this different mix of advanced technologies. And we feel strongly that in that mix, some of these main players like hybrids, plug-in hybrids, alternative fuels, even electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles will all kind of work together in these different areas, and they'll make up the market in different regions. And we feel that's going to be a...
Yeah, and actually the fuel cell is really very compatible with electrification of the powertrain, so it's...
Yeah, you're still using IGBTs and traction motors and all that good stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of things can happen. And it's going to be fascinating, I think, to see the tremendous pace of development. I think we probably, in some ways, overly focus on the battery as a critical element, but the motors, generators, and electronics related to power management and so on, I would expect the same kind of scaling is going to happen there. Now, this will be a final question, and I'll direct it to Richard, but others can make a comment, and that is there is competition among petroleum companies, but there is only one place, one company to buy electricity from here. And of course, in China, it's the same company everywhere in China, so it's a little different story. Will consumers of plug-ins and electrics be concerned about being dependent on just one provider of electricity?
Well, consumers are dependent on one provider of electricity already.
Already, so.
And I don't think, and consumers, although, in storms there's great complaints, but mostly consumers are very satisfied with their electric service. It has a couple, it's reliable, and the costs in advance, and electric power doesn't fluctuate anything like gasoline prices, and so I don't think that will be an issue unless the utility needs to increase their power generation, and then there may be some concerns over where the plant is sited, what type of plant it is, and so forth. But I see that as sort of independent of their
from this issue, yeah,
of their usage of electricity.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been clear here this week is that if you look at off-peak power capacity, it can fill a lot of batteries at night.
Yeah, I do want to add a comment on China. In China, what I meant is T&D, transmission and distribution, is one company. Generation is actually competitive.
Oh, okay.
China is building the majority, probably the most of the nuclear plants we've built in China. They have planned to build, 7 this year and probably 30 over the next few years. There are China is long in coal, short in oil, so it's a major, the electricity, if you plug into the plug-in hybrid actually solves 3 problems at the same problem, right? One is from energy source point of view, it switches from, even just on fossil fuels, switch from oil to coal, which China is long, and second is environmental effect, and then third is the carbon emission, and so that's really multiple angles is actually very advantageous.
Well, one thing I think is interesting about the electrification of the automobile is that you can actually have consumers that can be grid independent. You can have people which have solar roofs, they have maybe small wind turbines. So, of course, it's not the majority, but actually there is some people out there that has that possibility, and you cannot really do that with oil or having your own little nuclear power plant, of course, in the backyard. But it's clear you can have solar cells in your roof, and you can have perhaps a wind turbine. So I think that's something which I know from a lot of our customers obviously are on a level in terms of what they can afford, that they have solar panels on their roofs, and they like the idea about at least part of the electricity they put into their cars may be generated from that.
That's a good point. And I think one of the things that is clear, and it's certainly amplified by the discussion here, is of how multidimensional what we're talking about is. The global aspects, the consumer aspects, the multiple power generation capability, the energy independence potential. This is a really amazing technology, and it just feels like you're close to the beginning of something that's really big. I want to thank all of you as panelists. Audience, please give them a round of applause. Thank you.